We are here. Welcome, everybody that is joining us. Good to have you here with us. We are here for another session, another MLOps community session. Today, we're with the man, the myth, and the legend, Ilnardo.
Thank you, Dimitrios, to introduce me.
Yes, otherwise known as Ivan.
Yeah, my name is Ivan. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but everyone knows him as Ilnardo92 in Slack. He is the one that is posting all of those quality questions and giving all of those quality responses. So, man, this has been a long time coming. We've been wanting to do this for a while now.
Yeah, indeed. It's something that we plan, I think, about a couple of months. Mm-hmm. Yeah, more or less.
And plus, it's obvious from what you share in Slack that you are very knowledgeable and you have some experience with many different tools. And so it was only logical that we got you on here, I think. It was only a matter of time before you came on here. I will also say, for anyone that is out there listening, you are leading the engineering labs project. So sure. If maybe at the end we can give a little bit of a blurb about that, if we have time, that would be awesome, because I think there's a lot of people that are wondering what the engineering labs project is and what they can do and how they can get involved in that. So that is a MLOps community special, we could say.
Yeah, sure. Actually, we have this project with David. So yeah, we can talk about it a little bit.
Cool. Right on, man. Well, I think we've got some good people joining us. Feel free, anyone that is in here, to write any questions. We want to have like a conversation today. It's going to be Ilnardo talking about his experiences in the world of MLOps and ModelOps, but we love having questions. So drop any questions you have in the chat. If you're not in it already, I'm going to put in the chat right now a link to our MLOps community Slack so that you can jump in it if you would like to, if you're not in it. And that is about it. I think we're ready to go. I will hand over the floor to you, just so everyone knows what you're doing. Maybe you can give us a bit of background on what you've been up to for the last couple of years and how you got into tech.
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna talk about it during the presentation. I'll present me after I show the agenda.
Sounds perfect. All right, so then let's get into it without further ado. Ilnardo!
Thank you, Dimitrios. So let me share my screen.
Nice. You can share it, right? I gave you permission.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, cool. This is where you see how professional we are at this MLOps community.
Exactly. Can you see the screen?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, now we can.
I think we are good now. Okay. So let's start. Okay. So, today I'm going to talk about how we can operationalize open source model with the SAS Open Model Manager, which is one of the ModelOps platform we have in SAS. But before we get that, I want to share with you my experience about talking about the ModelOps topic in front of customers that I faced during these couple of years. So this is the menu for today. So I'll tell you why business, IT, and analytics people needs ModelOps. And it's not just about theory, as I mentioned. It's based on what I see so far, especially in the Italian market. And it's based on meeting I had over these years. Then I will introduce you how SAS can deal with the ModelOps. And I will do that with a special guest you will see soon. And after that, I will have a quick demo, and I'll close the presentation with a Q&A session.
And so people know, because I know this is a big question that comes up a lot. is like, what is ModelOps and what is the difference between MLOps and ModelOps? Do you use them interchangeably? What does that mean?
Yeah, essentially, let's say, based on my experience and also what I see from customer side, all of them are worried about model ops. So, and they see model ops like a kind of key capabilities, strategic capabilities that allow them to manage model in production. And when I say manage, I mean govern model in production, automate training in production, this kind of stuff. So let's say for me, model ops is the main topic, and also based on what I see and what I talk about with the customer, this is something that they are aware now, especially now compared to, let's say, 2 years ago that I joined SAS. So that's a kind of my point.
Awesome. Thanks for clearing that up.
So yeah, so if you are good, let's start. So first of all, let me talk a little bit about myself. Who am I? Someone's tell me that I look like an expert. I don't think so, but let me say I'm just a person passionate with model ops who joined SAS 2 years ago, actually. And during these 2 years, I worked every day for efficiently moving analytics model from deployment to production. And to do that, I collaborate with the data scientist, data engineer, open source expert, and together with the customer, we talk about and we design, we prototype data products for deliver expected business value. So, and because we today I want to talk about models and business value, let me tell you about my story. So why I start looking at model ops. Okay, at the beginning of the year, SAS has launched this VP, a value proposition about operationalizing analytics. So essentially, I don't know if some of you knows this picture, but if you just type model ops on Google, you will in the image session you will find it on the top research. It looks good, right? But it's just one of the way that we use to introduce customer to the topic of the model ops. So this idea of let's say have an end-to-end cycle that covers governance, deployment, monitoring, retraining a model, and also the decisioning part of the story. But even if this picture is so cool to see, this is what happened to me many times when I present this picture. So this is me, and asking question about how many models they had, how many models customer has, how long it took them to put in production, whatever or not they have governance. All of this to make them aware that the real problem is not building the model itself, but how to manage and transform this model in a real productive asset for the company. And the goal of the conversation, of course, was justifying in some way a model ops platform. Now, although my good intention of the case, because as I mentioned, I'm passionate with model ops, what I got after 10-minute conversation was were phases like this one. So perplexity, let's say, like, what are you talking about? And why is this? Because all of the, let's say, stakeholders that I face from on the field, and I talk with them about model ops, has a different idea about the model itself and when or how it's productive. For example, take the business, right? For the business, the model is productive when let's say you can consume it in a dashboard with the results of its application. So you can see, you can touch the business uplift that the model generates in production. For the analytics for the head of analytics, when you talk about him about model ops and how let's say he just give me a sec. Okay, and he thought about ModelOps and the ModelOps platform a kind of tool that it's related to his analytics teams. So it just drive the question to the, let's say, machine learning engineer and data scientist. And of course, they are more focused about building these data products. So they are more about machine learning pipelines. They spend a lot of time to, let's say, figure it out the right parameter to make the model better. So they don't have this kind of broad picture about the production environment. And at the end, we have the IT persona. The IT persona is more about let's say, this idea of platform, is worried about how can put open source models and in general models in production, but is more concerned about architectural issue. So, for example, how many machine I need GPU, and these kind of questions. So anyway, basically, after a few minutes of conversation, I had so many different needs put on the table that drove me essentially crazy. And so based on my experience, and this is something I would really like to share with you today, is that I learned when you start talking about model ops in front of customers, you don't need to ask thousands of questions. You need just one. What is a model? Because whatever let's say whatever whatever answer they give you, you can always say that at the end the models itself counts just for the 5% of a machine learning systems. And we said that, well, it's not SAS, right? But it's Google. And I know that you know this stuff. This paper is so famous so far. And essentially, we can sum up this picture just saying that an analytical model has hidden complexity that it makes difficult to put it into production. So, and what I would like to add this picture and this paper that you already know is that it's so true, because I touch this complexity. And when I talked with the business IT data scientists, I really, let's say, feel this kind of complexities. And that's why I want to give you some example of discussion that I had. And to do that, let's start with business. So imagine that a CEO on a high-level business just tells you that his analytics teams ships a data product with a dashboard, but he can't use it as it is. 3 months passed, and he doesn't know the reason of that. Why I can't use this product? Why data scientist spends 3 times to do that, and it's not usable for me, right? So if we read behind the lines of this statement, we can see let's say, the hidden complexity. First, the first thing, this analytical product has built in a context that has some lack of communication and therefore collaboration, right? Also, time passed, and this waste of time implies losses in terms of business value of the product itself, these open source products. And last but not least, if he's not able to, let's say, go back and understand the reasons of this waste of time, he has some lack of governance of the entire process. And this is just the business. If we move to the IT, I like the IT people, honestly, because I feel them close to me. They think about draw architecture to, let's say, put models in production. It is something that I like to do. And essentially, when you talk about the architectural guy, they always, and you ask them how you put, let's say, how you manage models in production, how you put them in production. They always reply proud to have created this kind of architecture with these pieces, all this broad picture. I mean, you have so many pieces in their architecture. But even in this case, that you have all these cool tools all together that allow you to put models in production, actually, there are some hidden complexity. And I will share with you some of them, of course. The first one is reproducibility. Think about that. What happens if a library that you use to train the model change, or let's say some dependencies between these tools change as well? Essentially, the entire system is gonna break, because I think you also face this kind of issues about dependencies. That's just an example of how it's so difficult to make, let's say, a system with all these pieces together difficult to be reproductive. So another hidden complexity is related to scalability. Because maybe you can build an end-to-end architecture to put your model in production for a specific use case. Let's say you trained, a scikit-learn model, but a scikit-learn model has different requirements in terms of, let's say, computation stuff, this kind of aspect, compared to a TensorFlow model, let's say. So this is another problem, the scalability. So how you can use this production, this environment again and again with different models. The last step is the last hidden complexity is related to the automation. It's not easy to manage the end-to-end. You can always have some kind of breaks in automation. And because the entire architecture is composed by so many pieces, it's not always so easy to figure it out where the process just breaks.
Yeah, actually, sorry to jump in real quick, but I remember Sarav talking about this very piece, and when he put together an open source end-to-end product, and he was saying one of the hardest things was also security, and that whole piece that he had no idea about.
Yeah. I'm agree. When you talk about IT, they have this kind of, let's say, also they are worried about this aspect, especially now that we have so, let's say, constrained in terms of regulation and this kind of stuff, especially in Europe, I think so. And so I'm agree with you. Another important thing is about security, of course. And just to conclude, just to, let's say, share my experience with the last persona, the analytics persona. Actually, as I mentioned, they let's say they know that they can do everything. Also, ModelOps things using open source. But let's say when you start talking with them about put an open source model in production, so build some kind of process that allow their models to move them in production, it's not so easy. The road is really long to deployment. You need skills, you need a lot, you need codes, and honestly, it's so. It can be really difficult to let's say manage all these things together, put all the pieces together, and even if when they are, let's say, they can manage all this stuff and put their model in production, because analytical models are different from, let's say, any kind of software, other kind of software. They have some challenges with monitoring and, of course, attach business decision on the result of the model. So for all, let's say, for all these reasons, for all this hidden complexity, these are all my reasons. That's why I start looking at ModelOps. So why ModelOps? Essentially, I see that ModelOps, as I mentioned before with Dimitrios, I see that ModelOps is this set of capabilities that provides the end-to-end and allow you to manage the model in production. And so it provides collaboration, agility, governance, automation, all these kind of, let's say, aspects that allow you to productionalize models. So now that I share with you my experience on talking about ModelOps in front of the customer, let me spend a couple of words about ModelOps technology I see out there in Italy. And then it will be great if you can provide me some feedback at the end. So let's talk about it. So let's talk about the ModelOps I see so far. And I would like to start from the technology perspective. This is the map of technology I faced. So we have, in Italy, I see that some customer has some, let's say, traditional technologies. So, for example, they start to implement Java platform that wrap Python models, for example, and try to, let's say, operationalize this model with this kind of programming language. Other customer has quite established technologies like Hadoop and Spark. So, for example, they let's say build this data lake, and on top of it, they start doing analytics using a Spark framework. And last, we have customers with containers technology. Of course, customer that is starting looking at the cloud. About container technology, of course, we have customer with, let's say, competitive technology like Docker and standardized technology. So managed platform like OpenShift, Cloud Foundry, and other similar platform. About the cloud, okay, yeah, I mean, you already know, and I think so, on GCP, Azure ML, Azure, Amazon SageMaker, you have all the services you need to operationalize models. So I just to this framework, I will just to add on top of this a couple of technology that let's say are supported by two key players in the ModelOps world, which are of course Databricks and Google's. And of course, I'm talking about MLflow and Conflow. In Italy, there are some customers starting to play with this kind of technology, especially Conflow. They are starting looking at Conflow. And so let's see what is going to happen these years. But this is my technology map. And despite this technology, if we want to represent this technology in terms of, let's say, maturity of ModelOps compared to the technology propensity, we can draw this kind of metrics. So on the bottom, we have the technology propensity, and on the left, we have the ModelOps maturity. And I just divide, I just, let's say, figured out three possible clusters. So the first cluster, let's say, is the set of customers that, as I mentioned, they build their own platform to put model in production. They're starting approach machine learning pipelines, I mean, complex machine learning pipelines for retraining and this kind of stuff. They are starting looking at automation, but they don't have any kind of technology for monitoring model, for example, or let's say, introduce decisioning part of the story. And so they do a lot of manual process, and they did a lot of let's say POC, proof of concept internally, but they don't have a model in production. Another cluster is that the one that let's say adopt the container technology. So they use the container to put model in production. They had this well-established analytics lab, and they develop open source model with the consultants, with the consulting firms. And but in 2 years, for example, they just put one, maybe two models in production, and they do a lot of spot analysis. So let's say models that they use for batch scoring and generate some kind of report. This is a kind of spot analysis. Finally, the last cluster is the one that they started looking at the cloud. So they have essentially because they are on the cloud, they have all services that they need to operationalize models. I noticed that even they are, let's say, moving on the cloud, some of them are not already conscious about the service that they can use on the cloud to operationalize models. So let's say they are starting experimenting them. So it's all about maturity, let me say. But anyway, independently from these three clusters, all of the customer I faces and I have in this cluster, they have the same challenges, the same problems. First, most of them has a manual iterative process to, let's say, train and put the model in production. They don't, let's say, operationalize many models. So as I mentioned, one, maybe two, and they do a lot of spot analysis. They don't have automation. I mean, they starting looking at CI/CD, let's say, framework. They are starting looking for pipelines to automate the models. And but of course, as I mentioned, even if they put the model in production, they are not already able to monitoring their performance, and they have lack in decisioning. I mean, they are not able to attach business decision on the result of the models in automated way, in automated fashion. And all these kind of, let's say, challenges that all the customer I face that are in common, they represent opportunities, right? But we need a kind of message. Everyone that works with the model ops need a kind of message to, let's say, deal with these kind of challenges. And because I love collaboration, and Dimitrios know that, this is my man. I want to share with you the message that I try to push in SAS Italy around these 2 years. And essentially, my message is this one. Just ask customers to show their analytical models. So you can understand, and because you spend a lot of time on studying machine learning system, you can suggest best practice. And just to mention, this is something that we are trying also to achieve with the engineering lab, right? We are trying to provide you some kind of best practice to operationalize open source model in different scenarios. And once you let's say, models that customer has, of course, because I'm in SAS, we can support customers to put them in production, providing governance and decisioning. So, okay, so that's something that, I mean, this is something I would like to share with you based on my experience, based on, let's say, meeting I had. Dimitrios, if you have some question, we can have a kind of sharing now, and then I can move on with the demo and the other stuff.
Yeah, I'm wondering, when you talk to people, is there something that you feel like there is a unified, like, oh, hey, we need to focus more on this? Have you seen something that, and it might be, oh, we need to focus more on our models, but they're focusing on the wrong thing?
Yeah, of course. I mean, as I mentioned, the general, let's say, perspective that I see out there is that model is so important. I mean, when I talk to customer, we always talk about analytics. I had this cool model, and this model has this highest accuracy, this kind of stuff, right? But nobody I mean, at least at the beginning of this year, so it's some time ago now. They were not aware about. Okay, you have this model and you need to put them in production. So how you can do that? And that's something that, yeah, I had this kind of talk, and where customer, let's say, has a different perception on what matters to generate business value compared to, let's say, analytics.
And I remember talking with someone, like, I think it was last year. They were saying, the first hurdle to MLOps is just getting the model out into production. And then the second hurdle is monitoring that model once it's in production, the day two operations. And then people start to look at things like reproducibility and governance, like you're talking about. Have you seen that?
Yeah, and I mean, for now, we in Italy, we are trying to introduce this concept of monitoring the models. And I mean, I had different meetings where, okay, maybe they are starting thinking about the problem of put models in production, but I asked to them, okay, and even if you, let's say, you use container to expose your model in real time, but then how you can monitor your model? and they just answered me, "Oh, I have to think about it." So yeah, that's something that I mean, I'm in Italy. Maybe we have a maturity level different from other countries, but yes, I mean, monitoring is not is not a kind of let's say it's a kind of other part of the talks about operationalization. So yeah, that's my experience.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. Let's get into this demo. Let's see what you got.
Yeah. Okay. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I'll ask a special guest to join me and to introduce you the SAS ModelOps platform. So thanks to Leo. This is the advertising time. And so let's talk about operationalizing open source model with the SAS Model Manager, Open Model Manager. So, okay, just to, let's say, link with the first part of the presentation, we already have, we see this kind of representation with the decisioning side of the story. And today in the demo, I'm going to focus on this part. Now, just to give you a couple of words, in SAS, we have different flavors of the same, let's say, ModelOps platform, depending on customers' needs. So we have SAS Model Manager, and then we have SAS Open Model Manager. That's the platform I'm going to present you today. And of course, because as I mentioned before, we are trying to support customers to put model in production. We have SAS services that especially focused on the ModelOps that allow you to manage the end-to-end you see in this picture. So the version of the model, the deployment, monitoring, and retraining. So I don't want to spend too much word about the, let's say, the capabilities of the tool, because I'm going to show you in the demo. But essentially, SAS Open Model Manager is a ModelOps platform that allows you to version your model and organize your model in project depending on your business purpose. I mean, the scope of the project that you're going to cover with your models. And then you, starting from the project, you can compare different models. You can choose the champions model, and you can deploy the models in a target environment. And once in production, and you store the data in some stage database, we have a service that can read the data from this database and then generate some kind of dashboard that monitor your models. And of course, you can have, and then you can enhance with this end-to-end, adding some let's say automation for retrain the model as well, based on the performance statistics we generate. This is with Open Model Manager. So let's have the demo now. I'm going to share the screen. Just to give you a bit of let's say framework about the demo. The architecture of the demo is the one I'm showing you in the picture. So essentially, I'm going to read NoSQL data from a MongoDB. Then I'm going to consume it in a Jupyter notebook. And then I'm going to register the models in the GitLab, and of course, I'm going to, let's say, push the pipeline of Jenkins in the GitLab, and then the server is going to cover all these steps to validate the model, and is going to register the model in Open Model Manager. Here, I'm going to show you how to compare models, how to put them in production, and how to monitor the model once you deploy in, for example, a container. Okay, so let's start the video. I need to share the other screen. Maybe you can see the screen, right?
Yeah, I see everything.
Okay. So also the video, right?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So let's let's make it full screen. Okay. So as I mentioned in the video, I'm going to cover a credit scoring business application. So essentially, we have this HNQ database that to decide if a customer can receive the loans or not. So we have this target variable, which is bad, and the other predictors. So I used some kind of standard libraries. This is a really plain vanilla demo of let's say, open source models. So I read the data from the MongoDB, and I just starting looking at the data. So for example, I get information on the data frame, I declare the variables, I impute the missings, I do one-hot encoding on categorical variables, and then I get the ABT, the analytical base table, for starting training the model. I did some kind of exploration to, let's say, understand the relation between the variables. I'm going to go I go fast on these steps because it's a kind of easy stuff. And then, okay, once I study the relation, I start training my models. I test different models, logistic regression, decision tree, and this kind of stuff. And then I compare them, and I pick the best one. And I challenge it with an XGBoost model. Once I train the XGBoost model, as you can see in the video, I just decide which of which model I have to put in production. In this case, the champions model was the XGBoost, and the challenger was the random forest. I just stopped the video to spend a couple of words about this idea of champions and challenger, because you can think about it like, okay, you based on your data, you train the model, and then you get that the XGBoost is the champions one, right? So you can think about it like, okay, I can deploy this model because it's the best one. But I see that some customer has also this idea of challenger. Essentially, once you get the champions model, you start to create some kind of synthetic data that simulates scenario where you have some kind of data drift. And so if you have some data drift and you retrain the model, maybe the XGBoost is not the champions model again. And so you need this kind of challenger model to let's say, replace the champions once you have some kind of data drift without have any kind of breaks in the, and let's say, in the continuous training and continuous delivery process of your model. That's a concept that I would like to share with you, just to let you understand the difference between the champions and the challenger model. So, okay, in this case, I have the champions model like XGBoost, but then I study the future importance, and based on my, let's say, experience, I decide that random forest consider most important variables that I need in my case. So at the end, my champions model is the random forest. Then I start the machine learning side of the story. So I create this pipeline using the scikit-learn framework. And that's something that, I mean, again, it's something really easy. And I test this pipeline. And okay, once I get the pipeline, this is the side of the story about SAS Open Model Manager platform. So essentially, to, let's say, register the model and to version the model in the platform, you need some kind of data. You need the requirements, you need the score code, you need the pickle file, and some kind of JSONs that to, let's say, register the metadata of the models and to version the models. And now we have this kind of library, which is called SASCTL, and that allow you to automate the entire process. So just based on the model that you have, he extract the metadata and he register the model in Open Model Manager or the ModelOps platform from SAS. And yeah, it's quite similar to MLflow essentially. Basically, it's the same idea. So in this case, I create all these files using the library, and then I create a zip file. So I show you the file that I'm creating, and so the requirements, the score code, the pickle file, and then the file related with the properties of the models, the input variable, the output variable, the training code, and also some statistics that is useful for me to compare different models. So in this case, the challenger and the champions model. And once I get all this file, I zip all this file and just as I'm going to show now, register in the Git repository. And so this is the, let's say, the analytical side of the story, because once you register the model in Git, maybe on another place in the company, there is some kind of a DevOps guy that is starting coding the Jenkins pipeline to validate this model before to reach the governance environments, and then, of course, to put it in production. So in this demo, I'm going to cover this part as well. So now I'm pushing the model. Okay, and once I register it, I switch and I become the DevOps guy. So the DevOps guy build this Jenkins pipeline to validate the model. So I'll show you the pipeline running in the Jenkins server, but essentially, probably many of you knows this stuff. A pipeline has different steps to validate, to run, for example, unit test of the score code, integration test where you use side container to call the model and see if, let's say, it produces predictions. And also for this particular case, I add some step to validate the files of metadata that was generated by the library that I use in the previous step. So, for example, this is the stage for validate metadata of the input variable and the output variable, and at the end I have this stage to register the model in the ModelOps platform. So the SAS Open Model Manager. So just to show this kind of stuff, I uncomment the pipeline. So I change something, and now I can push it in the Git. So yeah, it's basically it's a kind of let's say it's a plain vanilla example of GitOps, essentially this demo, because I use like Git as a common repository to push all the stuff in the Open Model Manager platform. So okay, then I push the Jenkins file, and then here is my server, the Jenkins server, the CI/CD server. As you can see, not always the test is good, but for this demo, I made it works. This is a kind of 1 year ago. Okay, so is just read the Jenkins file. Is starting all the tests I share with you. So first test is about the code quality test. Is testing both score code and training code. If, for example, indentation is fine and this kind of stuff. Then it's validate let's say the metadata file. It runs the unit test of the score code and also the integration test. So I simulate in this step, I simulate a business application that calls via REST API the score code, and it's fine. And then the last two steps, it's just about the demo. So I validate again some kind of data that I have, and now I'm registering in the SAS Open Model Manager platform. Okay, so the registration is fine. I'm going to show you. This is my unit test, and this is my integration test. And at this step, I have my sidecar container that runs model, and it receives the probability back. The probability is back. This is the log, and as you can see here, I register the XGBoost random forest in a project we call churn classification. Okay, so here we are. This is the ModelOps, SAS ModelOps platform. As I mentioned to you, we have this kind of dashboard that shows us the number of the model I have and which kind of code. Of course, I'm a Pythonist, so I like Python, and so I have just Python models in this demo. And then, as I mentioned, we have a lot of metadata, model function, which is the function of the model, the project version, and all this kind of stuff. Then I can organize models in project. So this is the project I created, and here we go. We have our models, right? The random forest and the XGBoost. So, and all the metadata associated to these models. So once you have these models, of course you will find all the data that you developed in the Jupyter environment. So the pickle, the requirements, the variables that you use for input and output, all these kind of properties. So who code, which is the target variables, and so on. And of course the version, because the main, let's say, one of the main characteristics of this tool is versioning the model. Okay, now, because this environment is something, let's say, to validate the models before to put them in production, one of the cool capabilities is compare models. So I can pick my models, and you can get all this information that compare the models. So statistics to choose which is the best model, and also the representation about lift and ROC. And of course, you can use show difference to let's say, get which is the best model. Okay, now suppose that based on the statistics, I choose champions model, the random forest, right? Because the statistics are the same that I have in the previous environment. So just approve this model as a champions. I choose the variable, the output variable. And so this is my champions model, and is almost ready to be deployed. Of course, I can set the challenge model, because the reason I mentioned to you. And so we are the challenger model. So the different role you can see in the picture. So now we validate the model with the Jenkins pipeline. So we set challenger and champions model. We are ready to deploy the model. And thanks to this environment, you can deploy models once you configure it with just a button. So you can publish the model. We support different publish destination. In this case, I'm publishing a container. So a Docker container. So he's starting publishing. Okay, there we go. It's success. And so one of the coolest capabilities of this tool as well is, once you publish the model in the production, before to, let's say, start models running, you can have a kind of test, a remote test. And so you can pass data to the model that you just published. I show you. So this is my sample, Ivan Nardini. As you can see, Dimitrios, my name in the company is not Ilnardo, it's Bunard. Ivan Nardini.
Yeah, what is that? You've been playing us this whole time.
Yeah. And okay, and just run the test. So the test is running. You get the status, a positive status, and this is the output. And as you can see, we get the probabilities of the model. This is the code I use in the container, and this is the log, a really simple log, because everything is fine. Thanks to God, let's say, because we deployed our model. Okay, so now suppose that our model is in production, we are almost fine. This is the monitoring part you mentioned before, Dimitrios. So thanks to this environment, you can define some performance definition. And so assume that you configure the environment to read the data from the staging database that you have that store the scored data from the model. You just provide a name of the performance definition. Yeah, some description if you are a kind of precise person like me. Yeah, and then okay, you set the variables that you want to use for performance. You save the performance definition, and then you run. And in 10 seconds, more or less, you get this coolest graph about the let's say, variable draft, some kind of statistics that data scientists out there know better than me, because I'm not a data scientist, of course. And yeah, you can also, let's say, interact with this graph, change the variables. And of course, as you can see from ROC, the model is starting underperform after a few days. So it's not good, bad news for data scientists. But anyway, because you have these kind of tools that track history, variables, and all your models, you can start training again your models. So that's something that I will share with you. I mean, these are the main capabilities of SAS Open Model Manager platforms. So let's close this presentation with the take homes. So, okay. I hope you see the screen again.
Oh, yeah. We got
okay.
it.
So take homes and we close, guys. So essentially what we notice is that operationalizing analytics, you have two sides to consider. First side is the effort that you put to, let's say, have your model in have as your model in production. So, and this is a kind of distribution of the effort. So 40%, we estimate around 40% to prepare the data. Believe it or not, 10% of explore and train in, let's say, not train the model, but figure it out the best model that you can get. 30% to, let's say, create all the information that you need to version the model, test the model, validate the model. And of course, 20% to, let's say, create this process to monitor and retrain the model as well. How we can translate this effort in business value with this distribution? So 25%, 50%, 25% again, and then 35%, which is good for us that we support ModelOps, because this is the value of ModelOps, and is more than 50% in terms of business value of the entire model lifecycle. It's really important. I mean, that's why I'm working on ModelOps, because I see this value, right? And of course, the last two things, if you, I mean, and that's why ModelOps also, because this is a typical analytical operationalization. You do all this step manually, you don't have ModelOps, you don't have automation, collaboration, all the aspects that ModelOps supports. And so you spend a lot of time on doing that, and then the value that you can generate, you lose a lot of value in terms of analytics because you do this stuff manually. But if you have ModelOps, you can, let's say, train and also validate your models, automate all this stuff. So you spend less time, and then you can get a huge value in terms of analytics. And for data scientists out there, it means that your stakeholders are so happy about that, because you generate business value with your models. That's why ModelOps. And thank you for your attention. So Q&A.
Awesome, man. Thank you for that. I'm wondering, if anyone has any questions, throw them in the chat. Feel free to drop it in. I'm wondering about this, like how you feel. Is this something that should be for smaller companies that are trying to really focus on it, or is it more of a medium to large scale companies that can make best use of this, or is it just for everybody?
Yeah, okay, that's a cool question, Dimitrios. Actually, I had this meeting 2 weeks ago, where during I mean, I showed the same stuff I shared with you today, and at the end of the presentation, the customer just said, "Oh, yeah, it's a cool tool, right? But at the moment, I have just 1-2 models and that I'm trying to put in production. So why I should adopt this huge platform, this framework, monitoring performance, automate, all this kind of stuff?" Yeah, that's my answer about that. If you don't do that now, that you have just 1 or 2 models, right? When you have to do that, because when you have few models means that you have less complexity in your process, because you have less users, you have let's say less use case to deal with, and so you have time. You have let's say you can start thinking about this process, this ModelOps process, and on the long term, on the long run, if you start to automate this stuff now, you can scale better, because you have well-established model that you, let's say, improve use case by use case. And then when you have let's say, thousands of users, thousands of models, and a really analytical factory, let's say, it's easier because you have experience with ModelOps, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's just building the foundation, making
Yeah.
sure that everything's clean before you scale up.
Yeah, indeed. And yeah, as I mentioned before, actually in SAS we have different flavor of this platform. Today I presented you SAS Open Model Manager, which is the containerized version of our platform. We have also SAS Model Manager. That's the tool I shared with you the architecture yesterday. That's something that is going to come up in maybe next article on ML community. So yeah, I mean,
Dude, awesome. Thank you. I see time is running low, and I want to give a big shout out to you for coming on here and showing us what SAS has been up to and how you've been seeing the market, because I think a lot of us resonate with that. I know that I've seen it in people's eyes, and these different like factions of the company and the different goals that people have or ways that they look at it is very true. I've seen it countless times, and I'm sure many others have. So big thanks to you, Ilnardo, and we'll see you in Slack, man. If anyone wants to know about the engineering labs, we didn't get a chance to talk
yeah,
about it, but feel free to reach out to Ilnardo on Slack. Ilnardo92 if you don't know who he is, and we will see you all later.
yeah. Thank you, you guys. Bye bye, Dimitrios.
See you,
Great,
man. Thanks.
great meetup. Bye bye.